Owning a boat comes with a number of perks, like being able to fling your favorite fishing rod around. And here's another perk. Geico's boat insurance covers your boat and your belongings. And with specialist support from agents that are as passionate about boating as you are, there's so much value that you'll want to high-five someone. But not while you're holding your fishing rod. That's a prized possession. So hold on tight with both hands and keep it covered through boat insurance. Get more with Geico.
This is Wheelbearings. I'm Dan Roth.
And I'm Sam Abuel Samad.
So I was going to say we're doing a rare Saturday recording, but I think like a couple of weeks ago we did a rare Sunday recording. So,
yeah.
You know what? Like we do this when we have time, and now's when we have time. So happy weekend. And
that's right. And you're getting what you paid for.
Right. That's true.
And we're giving you what we're getting paid for.
Right. That is correct. I don't know, man. The amount of... We pay for this in one way or another. We pay... Anyway.
That's true. Well, that's the problem is we're doing the paying. We're not getting paid for this.
That's true.
We
sound like
out of the goodness of our hearts and the fact that sometimes we just want to spout off, no matter what people think of our opinions.
That's true. I mean, we have a platform. We might as well use it. Sometimes it's just cathartic.
Exactly.
This is therapy. You know what? If you weren't doing the podcast, you'd probably pay somebody to go talk to them for talk therapy. So I don't know. Anyway, let's get to what we're driving. You have way better cars than I did this week. So why don't you talk about what you're driving?
Yeah. So over the last week, I had a couple of different cars, or last week and a half, I had a couple of different cars, a couple of midsize premium European SUVs, as a matter of fact. One that I drove here at home in Michigan, and one that I drove when I went out to Colorado for a few days for a work-related event and a long weekend with my wife. The first was the new Volvo XC60, and what I really like about the XC60 is that it really makes me want the new V60. The new 60 series, the new Volvo 60 series, which is their midsize lineup, which currently includes the XC60, and they just launched the V60 at the Geneva Auto Show last month, and there should be an S60 coming up, an S60 sedan coming up in the next few months, sometime probably at was it Frankfurt this year or Paris? I can never remember which one's which.
It's Europe, right? So it's not that big of a region. Well, they don't buy that many cars or anything. It's somewhere over there.
Well, yeah, I mean, whichever is the big fall show. I mean, that Paris and Frankfurt alternate every other year. So anyway, the 60 series is based on the same Volvo scalable product architecture platform as the bigger 90 series, but it's in what I would consider to be a more pleasant, more manageable size. It's the right sized version of the XC90, and this is a platform that I like. I like driving it. It's all-wheel drive on this one. It's this was the T6, so it's got the twin-charged 2-liter 4-cylinder, 315 horsepower, with a turbocharger and a mechanically driven supercharger. It's a wonderful engine.
I really like that engine. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's powerful, responsive. Has a really nice sound to it, that gives you, that hint of performance, without trying to come across, like a boy racer or anything like that. It's just grown up enough.
Yeah, they don't play any car sound through the speakers or anything.
No, they don't.
Which I'm thankful for.
And then in most other respects, it's very much like the 90 series vehicles, the V90, the S90, and the XC90, which is both, good and bad, good in terms of the materials and the fit and finish and everything, comfortable seats. It's fairly roomy. And unfortunately, it also still has Census, which we've talked about ad nauseum before, and I'm not going to beat that dead horse.
Before we get too far from it, though, like, do you find that the more time you spend with it, do you like it less?
Neither less or more. I still don't really like it. It's perhaps marginally more. It felt marginally more responsive than it has in the past on the 90 series models. So I don't know if they've tweaked the software a little bit, or maybe gone with a slightly faster processor, or what. But it's and despite that, I'm still not a fan of the general user interface and the user experience with it. It's still the layout with 3 screens. So whatever is kind of the current operational mode is on the middle screen, and you've got some functions when you swipe to the left, and some other functions when you swipe to the right. And for example, if you're on the middle screen, if I'm using Android Auto and I swipe over to the swipe left to get to the right hand screen, if I want to change the audio settings, to go from the studio mode to the concert hall mode, or to some other mode, you tap on that, it pops back to the middle screen. You select the mode you want, and then you have to swipe back over again to get back to the Android Auto interface. There's too many taps and swipes, for a lot of things that should be fairly straightforward. I'm just not particularly enthused with this overall interface, and I'll be glad when they move on to something else.
Yeah, I will say nothing other than I concur, and let's talk about the rest of it. So you said it's like a right-sized XC90. So everybody who bought the XC90 because they couldn't wait for the 60 to come out is, hopefully still satisfied. But if you feel like it's too big, now you have your option.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on your use case. We've talked with Casey Liss a couple of times on the show, and his wife drives an XC90, and they've got 2 kids, and that for them, having a little bit bigger utility, is probably fine. Especially with 2 young kids. If you're going to visit family, or taking a road trip or something like that, there's always all kinds of stuff that you need to load in the back. You've got strollers and playpens and all the other usual accoutrements that go along with small children. And so, for them, the XC90 may be the better size. Although, we had cars closer in size to the XC60, when my kids were younger, and, we managed just fine. I personally prefer, something a little bit on the smaller to mid-size side, for general day-to-day driving. And I personally find the XC60, more to my liking in terms of size-wise and dynamics. And that's why I'm waiting patiently for the V60 to show up, because I also prefer the lower ride height. I am not among the increasing group of the population that prefers to have a higher ride height and the ability to theoretically see over the rest of the road users, although that's not really possible anymore when everybody's driving utility. When everybody's above average, is anybody above average?
No, now what you need is a lower car so you can see under the tall car.
Exactly. That's my point. That's why I drive a Miata, right, so I can see under everybody else. No, yeah, but you're right. I prefer the driving dynamics of a lower center of gravity, and so if I was spending my own money, it would be on something more like the V60 than the XC60. But that's my personal opinion, and for a lot of people, the V60 or the XC60 is the right one for them. And I think if you're looking for a premium mid-size SUV, you're for the most part, you're probably going to be really happy with something like the XC60. It's got plenty of performance. There's also, I don't know if it's available yet, the plug-in hybrid. If it's not on sale yet, it will be fairly soon. Adding the the battery and the electric drive on the rear axle that we also have in the XC90 T8, as well as the S90 and the V90. So that one will give you about, I think about 15 miles of all electric driving. And, if you're looking for something even more fuel efficient, that will be the best, that will be the best option. But, the XC60, was great. I think it's, it's got beautiful materials, the leather and the open pore wood trim, which is my preference over the high gloss wood trims that a lot of cars have. And because it's not the hybrid, it does have more of a traditional shifter in there, mechanical shift linkage, and which works more consistently than the setup that Volvo has in their plug-in hybrids. So with the electronic switch for the shifter.
Yeah, I don't like the plug-in one. It's weird.
Yeah. So, I think it's a great vehicle. One thing I did notice though, having recently driven the V90 about a month and a half ago, by comparison, the Drive Pilot system in this one, the partially automated system, actually seemed to it worked in terms of detecting the lanes. It worked. It seemed to work about as well as the V90 did, which is to say, it was better than the past XC90s and S90s that I've driven. But it actually seemed, in terms of trying to hold the lane, stay centered in the lane and track the lane, when you're going around a corner, it actually seemed to drift more than the V90 did. And I'm not sure if that's just a matter of the way they've got the XC60 calibrated by comparison to the 90 series. But it was definitely the lane centering system was definitely less useful in this one than it was in the V90 that I recently drove.
Huh. Like overall, I think it's a beautiful vehicle. Like Volvo has just really reinvented stuff.
Yeah, they've nailed it on their design over the last couple of years.
I can't get over how premium it looks. From inside and out. It's just it's wonderful because there's been the running joke about Volvo for however many years. They're boring or they're boxy. The running joke was always that they looked like the box that they came in. And some of us who had those Volvos really appreciated it. And there's a sort of understated elegance and a real functional design. I don't know. I don't want to get too geeky about it, but the last time they had such a cohesive lineup, I don't know that we really took notice as much. We might have taken it for granted when the first generation S80 came out and really shifted them away from squarish cars, and that proliferated throughout the whole lineup. You had the S80, the smaller S60s, and the V70s, and the first XC90. They all really looked like they belonged together. And these cars still, now Volvo's lineup, they really look like Volvos. I'm so impressed by that. And you get in the interior, and besides senses, that you're in a Volvo, and it's really well done.
Yeah, and it looks like it should cost $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, depending on the trim level you have. Given what it costs, it looks the part.
Yeah, and it actually, going from sort of your first impression of it to looking at the sticker, it's usually a little bit of a surprise. It usually winds up being cheaper than you thought it might be.
Yeah, especially, if you compare it to, to something like, a Mercedes or a BMW, that's comparable. It usually does come out, maybe $10,000 or $15,000 cheaper for, what would be, a roughly comparable amount of equipment.
Yeah. Yeah. And, their systems are, they've really done well to add active safety to the cars, and passive safety has always been one of their strengths for generations now. And I just remember back to when the small overlap test came out, when they started testing cars for that, basically everybody failed. There was a couple that didn't, and one of the ones that didn't was the old original XC90 that was, at least 5 or 6 years old on the market at that point. Something that was designed in the late 90s managed to do well. It passed that test. Protected the driver.
Yeah, I mean, the only, as I said, with the drive pilot assist system, that was really the only flaw in this. And as I talked about, last time, all you got to do is just remember that none of the cars that are currently available for sale are autonomous. So you do still have to drive them. It will, This system will give you some assistance, but it's not going to keep you on the road, unless you are fully in control of the car.
Yeah, I mean it's a nice place to spend time though, from what it sounds like.
Oh, absolutely.
So you went from that to another place that's nice to spend time. You went over to the Mercedes side.
Yeah, so I dropped off the Volvo at the airport, flew out to Colorado for a few days for a work event, and while I was out there, I had the Mercedes GLE 550e, which is the plug-in hybrid variant of the Mercedes equivalent of the XC60.
Okay.
Their midsize. Yes,
because I was gonna say they didn't even hire Johan Donation, and they screwed up all their names. I'm shocked.
Well, actually, they changed all the names, but at least if you're going to stick with some alphanumeric system, which Mercedes, granted, has always had for their entire history, they've never had actual names on their vehicles. So at least what they did when they changed them around is they made them somewhat more consistent. So everything that starts with GL is a crossover or SUV, and then the third letter in there denotes the size. So the GLA is the small one, the GLC is the compact. The C segment size. The GLE is the mid-size, that is, comparable in size to the E-Class. And then the GLS, which was formerly just the GL, is the big 3-row utility. And so the GLE is the one that up until 2 years ago was known as the ML.
I'll try to keep it straight.
Yeah, I mean, at least Mercedes, like I said, Mercedes has always used letters and numbers, in this way. And at least now the nomenclature is a little more consistent, and you can get an idea of where everything falls. So, as I said, the GLE is the roughly comparable in size to the XC60, and in its current form, when it went from the ML to GLE nameplate, it got a mid-cycle refresh, but this one has been around for a while, in more or less its current form since about 2010 or 2011, when it launched. And this one's the design, the platform design and everything actually dates back to more than a decade, before Daimler and Chrysler actually split up. And so there's a lot of similar chassis DNA between this vehicle and the Jeep Grand Cherokee and the Dodge Durango. Yeah. They're all based on the same basic architecture, which is a good thing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that basic architecture.
It's really good, and everybody likes all three of those vehicles. So there's a core of really solid design, and I'm assuming that the Mercedes versions of it are built a little differently, and maybe they have more welds or different details. I'm sure that there's a lot of actual component differences, but the design and layout and hard points are you get one on the lift and you go, oh, it's one of those. So it's an interesting comparison though, because they really are. The XC60 and the GLE are going to be cross-shopped. So how do they stack up against each other?
the one I drove, as I said, is the plug-in hybrid. So this is kind of the higher end version. It's got a twin turbo 3-liter V6 with about 400 horsepower. Or actually, it's, let's see, I think the total combined output is about 436 with the electric motor, an 85 kilowatt electric motor, and the twin turbo V6.
Yeah, I mean, that blows my mind right there. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but like the idea that you're going to do a hybrid, so you've got to put a twin turbo V6, like those things seem to compete, not.
Well, the thing to keep in mind is, kind of the trend that we've seen, especially from the premium brands, is, and Volvo's doing the same thing. They've got, they pair their twin charged 2-liter turbo with their plug-in hybrid. So they're putting out in the plug-in hybrid, it's about 400 horsepower. So it's pretty comparable to this to what the Mercedes is doing, and it's. What they've been doing is putting these plug-in hybrid powertrains with more powerful engines. So rather than going for maximum fuel economy, like a Prius would do or a Hyundai Ioniq or something like that, they are actually pitching these in the marketplace as more premium, more performance-oriented hybrids that also just happen to get significantly better fuel economy. So you're getting both, and by doing that, by selling it as a more of a performance variant, you can get a higher price point for it, and in that way, they can market it. At a price point where they can actually make money on it, as opposed to making it a loss leader. And so it helps them get their average fuel economy up, get their their fleet CO2 emissions down, and be able to pitch it, to a customer, the type of customer that wants a more premium model, a more performance-oriented model. And certainly, the GLE 550e, has more than adequate performance. It averaged about 28 miles per gallon, during the week I was driving it, in Colorado, in the thin air in Colorado. So that was fine. It only gets about 9 or 10 miles of all electric range, because it's got a relatively small battery and it's fairly hefty. I mean, this thing weighs about 5,500 pounds per weight.
That's more than fairly hefty.
So,
that's like 2 cars. Hefty. But,
it's an older Mercedes design, before they really started optimizing for fuel efficient or for weight, and I think when the next generation GLE comes out in the next year or two, probably, we'll probably see it be, lose several hundred pounds at least. From where it is today. And that's one thing to keep in mind. As I said, this GLE has been around in more or less its current form since about 2010. So it's getting on there in years, and it's kind of the previous generation of Mercedes design language. So it's not quite where, the current E-Class and S-Class are, from a design standpoint. So I think, we'll probably see something that looks a little smoother and sleeker, for the next generation. A little more modern, but this one was fine, and certainly the interior, compared to the current E and S, the interior is where you see the biggest difference, in terms of the technology and the design. I think when we get the next GLE, it'll probably adopt the really wide screen look, that's got two large high definition LCDs in there, one in the center, one for the cluster. We already saw that on the new G-Class, the G-Wagon that launched at the Detroit Auto Show, and the E and the S already have that. So we'll probably see that in that kind of look in the new GLE as well.
Like Mercedes, another brand that just they come up with an idea and it's what was it that BMW's guy said a while ago? Like, the same sausage, different lengths. It's kind of the same thing. Like,
yeah, more or less.
Come up with an idea and it goes across all their cars. It's very consistent. You know what you're in. You know where the controls are. They do it a particular way. They do it the Mercedes way, where Volvo does it the Volvo way. BMW, same thing. They have their quirks, but once you get familiar with that in one of their cars, you pretty much understand it across all of their cars. Like Command, how bad that is. You expect that Mercedes is going to have it and it's going to be bad. Although it's probably not as terrible.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's better. It's better than it has been. I mean, it's the same basic UI that's been in most Mercedes for the last 8 or 10 years. And that's another thing. When the new GLE shows up, I have no doubt it'll probably adopt the new MBUX infotainment system that just launched on the A-Class, the new A-Class hatchback, which also debuted at the Geneva show. And that's an all new system that's much more powerful than before. It's based on some new NVIDIA. It runs on some new NVIDIA GPUs. It incorporates a new hybrid voice recognition system that uses both embedded and cloud components. It's developed by Nuance. So when you've got cellular connectivity, it enables more natural language style processing. So if you want to, put in a navigation destination, you can just tell it where you want to navigate to, and it'll figure it out. It'll send it up to the cloud, process it, and figure it out much more quickly and much more reliably than the system that was in this GLE, which frankly did not work that well, in terms of voice recognition. But fortunately, the GLE does have support for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So, using Android Auto worked a lot better once I figured out where to enable that in the menu structure. That in itself was a bit of a challenge, but once I finally found it, then it worked. It worked much better than the embedded system. And we took this thing for a drive up into the mountains on Saturday morning, and despite weighing almost 3 tons, it did surprisingly well, navigating around these narrow hairpin turns going up the side of this mountain, and then coming back down, just coasting, with a light foot on the brake pedal, using the regen. It managed to get the battery from 0 back up to about 50% state of charge by the time, we got about 7 miles back down the mountain again. So
yeah, that's not bad at all. Good. I mean, that's that weight is road hugging weight.
Yes, that's one way to describe it.
Keeps you stuck to the pavement, where other cars just blow away.
Well, better stuck to the pavement than going off the edge of the cliff, down the side of the mountain.
Yeah, that's for sure. I remember we took the Mount Washington Auto Road. I guess this was a while ago now, back in like 2004. But it was rather terrifying when you start to get up at the higher elevations, because you look over and it's like there's no guardrail, and we could just drive right off the edge, and we'd wind up in the ravine down all the way at the bottom. It's
kind of like Pikes Peak.
Yeah, it's
which is was actually was only about 30 miles from where we were. So
you didn't try to see how quickly you could get up it.
No,
I would love to see how fast that Mercedes could do it. I would think that would
I don't think my wife would have appreciated that, though.
That's true. That might have been something you need to get wined and dined.
I'd like to stay married.
Yeah. No, they need to make that an automaker trip. Like they can launch the next GLE at Pikes Peak and have the fine stakes out for it. All right, I'm starting to babble. So,
well, maybe that's what Ford is planning next week for the launch drive for the new F-150 diesel.
Yeah, I mean, or maybe they're just going to give you like 1 gallon of fuel and challenge you guys to like sort of
see how far we can get up the mountain.
Yeah, because it's supposed to get 30 miles to the gallon, right? Its EPA number came out, and it was pretty good.
Yeah, only for the 2-wheel drive XL or XLT, the base version, basically the fleet truck version. That's the only one that gets 30. All of the non-fleet versions, all the consumer versions are only getting 25.
Yeah, but they can say 30 because one of them. I mean, that's the same way they play around with like the towing numbers too. They're like, yes, the F-150 with a 3-cylinder engine it'll tow 19,000 pounds. It's like, One of
but
them
only
will.
when you're going downhill.
Right. In a single configuration, it will, and not the configuration that most people buy. The trucks are impressive these days. Anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything all that exceptional this week. I had a Charger. I had a 2018 Charger GT, which I think is, it's not necessarily a new trim, but it's updated. It's basically all the Challenger GT parts in a Charger, which is funny because the Challenger GT parts came from the Charger. Regardless, I think it might actually be they just
kind of keep leapfrogging each other.
Yeah. So I think what it was actually the Charger GT Plus. So it has the more efficient transfer case that allows the front axle to be disconnected, and
well, that's something they've actually had for several years now on the LXs, is that full disconnect transfer case.
Okay. So, and maybe
because that adds about a mile per gallon in highway driving.
Overall, these cars are aging so gracefully. I mean, it's a great car. It's a four-door sedan that's spacious. It's got all-wheel drive, so it's pretty sure-footed. It also defaults to rear-wheel drive, so it drives nicely. It's got a 300 horsepower V6. It's not like it's pokey. Good-sized trunk. All of the things that you want in a car. It's a good car that has been on the market for a decade.
Yeah, it's something that Chrysler knows how to build consistently.
Yeah, and they must be making. I hope they're making fat margins on this car now, because all the tooling and engineering and everything else tooling I guess is kind of an ongoing cost. Some of it anyway, but these cars are long paid off. I hope.
Oh yeah.
And they're not bad. They're not bad at all, and they keep tweaking them to keep them up to date. So
yeah, just they keep giving them some some new features every year, and adding some stuff. Every time the new model year rolls around, they add some new trim level. Throw in a slightly more powerful Hellcat engine or something. I'm sure it's only a matter of time before we see the Charger Demon.
That would be cool. I mean, coolish. And those models, I'm sure they don't expect to sell many of them, but it gives the rest of the model lineup a lift. It's that classical sort of Halo car thing, and it works. And I was surprised to see the Charger GT because there's nothing really all that GT about it. It's a V6 with all-wheel drive. You could have gotten an RT with all-wheel drive in the Hemi not too long ago. I have to admit I didn't go poking through the site to see if you still can. So maybe that's the difference where they've shuffled. But
I mean, it wasn't that long ago that 300 horsepower in a family size sedan. I mean, 300 horsepower in a sports car.
Yeah.
15 years ago would have been pretty phenomenal. That's 15 years ago, 300 horsepower would have been a lot in, say a V8 Ferrari, much less, something like a Charger GT, as the base trim level.
Yeah. It's a nicely done, I'm so impressed. These cars are so old and they were based on old stuff. They don't feel old. They don't feel, maybe it's bias, a little bit of I like it and I want to like it. So, overall, the materials and stuff in the interior are good. They've evolved the cars enough to keep them feeling pretty fresh. They styling wise, they can only go so far. So that does start to sort of blend in because there's a lot of these shapes that we've seen for a long time now. No matter how they change the front and rear, that starts to get a little bit long in tooth. But there's only so much
around here. You just got to keep your eyes out, for the blue ones with the red flashing lights on the top.
Yeah,
because that's the Michigan State Police use a lot of these for patrol cars.
Yeah.
As do police in a lot much of the country.
Yeah, they did become popular with police fleets. And now I've started to train myself. Every time I see an Explorer, I take my foot off the gas. especially the Explorer Sports. And I think Ford did this on purpose. They make the Explorer Sport look just like the unmarked cruiser, like the unmarked Interceptor or whatever they call the police version of it.
The police Interceptor utility.
Yeah. That if it's an unmarked version, it looks just like an Explorer Sport. So it's just like,
well, even the marked ones, you know, most of them, a lot of them now have, you know, the lights are integrated into the grille and like the top edge of the windshield. So there's no external, when the lights are off, there's nothing externally visible. So even if they're marked, a lot of times you can't tell until the lights start flashing, and you realize, oh,
I've had that happen. It's it's a thing. And the other vehicle I had, which I think I had it a couple of weeks ago as well. I wound up back in the Nissan Armada Platinum Reserve, and I'm not complaining because it's a very nice large SUV that is going to come in handy for the rest of the weekend because we have a thing to do. So, like a family thing. You
got some big stuff to haul around, or just lots of kids to haul around? People
and big stuff, like just large kid activity stuff, so sports stuff. So it'll be.
That's where vehicles like that come in handy. Although, a minivan would still probably be a better solution, but
a minivan a minivan would be great for a lot of reasons. But even then, the SUV, I remember how offended everybody was that SUVs were popular. And it's almost now like that hatred has been transferred to crossovers. And it's like, okay, so it's not a sports car. But I'm at that stage in my life where a sports car would sit because it's only got a couple of seats, and I need to put everybody in the car and take them to a different city.
Your kids are still a few years away from having their own driver's license.
Yeah.
And ability to get themselves to where they need to be, and a preference for doing that without you tagging along. So
right. So,
although they may already have that preference, but not the ability to do anything about it.
Yeah. Then once they start earning their own damn money, then they can. Yeah, anyway. I sound like a 50s dad.
Speaking of being offended, and in this case, particularly visually offended, a couple of days ago, we had some images leak out of the concept vehicle that Mercedes-Benz is going to be launching this coming week, I think, at the Beijing Motor Show in China. The Mercedes-Maybach Ultimate Luxury.
I have to say, I'm usually, I usually kind of shrug at some of this stuff because, all right, whatever. But man, that thing is ugly, and I think everybody who says if they actually make it, they'll sell out all of them. I think both of those things can be true.
Sadly, you are absolutely right. They will. There's a lot of people out there with far more money than sense. And unfortunately, those two things often go, in opposite directions. As you get more and more money, you tend to often have far less sense about these things. So for some inexplicable reason, Mercedes-Benz has taken the GLS platform that I mentioned earlier, which is their full-size, 3-row SUV, and put something that looks kind of like a bloated sedan body on this thing that just looks ridiculous. And that split rear window. I mean, what is that? I do wonder if it's Mercedes having its thumb on its finger on the pulse of the market that it expects to sell these in. That's not our market. It's bad to look at, but I think that it's always got some presence, whether it's positive or negative. It's almost like there's no such thing as bad press. There's no such thing as too shocking. And, the wheels look kind of cool.
Yeah, I like the wheels.
And they look like the fans, on a modern airliner engine. These compound curves, so those look kind of cool. But the rest of this thing is just absurd.
I mean, it's got this weird sort of sedan shape from the side profile. It's strange.
It looks like something that would be created by who's that European tuner? Mansory.
Mansory's awful.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like something that they would build.
They're called Mansory because sorry. The thing I can't get over, it looks okay actually up until you get to the C pillar, and there's just
until you open your eyes,
it's kind of innocuous from the front. For the most part, this could be, a Hyundai design from back in the XG350 days. And you'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's like, and then these are concept drawings too, right? Like, this is not an actual vehicle. They don't look good enough to be. Well, maybe they're renderings. I don't know. It's the rear profile that it looks like a compact sedan, which is not, but it just, because it has that sort of stubby little trunk on it, and it's just, I don't know. It looks to me like it looks like a Cavalier or an AMC Eagle.
I think if it were at something like a normal ride height, the problem is the proportions are all wrong. Because it's got these big giant wheels and it sits up really high. Yeah. And if you took that basic profile and put it at a normal sedan ride height, it actually wouldn't be that terrible. Yeah. But it's just, it looks like some, bizarre cartoon that, for something that, with a Maybach badge on it, this thing is probably going to cost, $300,000. And it just looks silly.
We've all seen ugly $1 million houses. So, yeah, all right.
And, apparently it's all electric. Four electric motors with 750 horsepower. But I
don't know. I get that it's kind of gross to look at, but also I can't get that worked up about it. I really don't think this is going to be.
Yeah, it's not like they'll ever sell very many of these.
It'll be a travesty if this is what influences the future generations of Mercedes vehicles, because right now their lineup looks better than it has in a long time. From the C to the S and everything in between. At least sedan wise, it looks really good. The pictures of the interior of this car they're again, the design thinking, at least on the inside, is interesting. I won't say that I love it. I really, I don't like the weird goldish or copper. Apparently it's been popular now to use bronze or copper for a trim color instead of gold, or aluminum or stainless. So I don't love that, the color choices. But design wise, it's interesting.
But the shapes are good. I have no issue with the shapes.
The dash panel with that weird grill kind of thing on it. I don't know. It's interesting, and it has a bit of sort of, there's almost like a little bit of throwback to that, which is nice. I hate the tacked on LCDs. It's like, look, we took two tablets. We went to Staples and we bought a couple of Surface Pros and stuck them together.
Well, again, this is the that though is the look of modern Mercedes. That's what's in the E and the S and even the new A class. And this is probably going to be running that MBUX infotainment system that I mentioned earlier. Which I got a demo of it during the NVIDIA GPU Technology Conference, and it's actually really good. The interface is much better than before. It's much more responsive. So I think that this part will be, the infotainment system will probably be fine.
Yeah. And at the end of the day too, I can't really say that this is any more offensive than the Bentley Bentayga, which is an actual car that you can buy, and the Bentayga is just that's if it makes you vomit, it's done its job. It's just awful. And it's supposed to, I can't imagine that it's not supposed to be awful, because again, it's supposed to announce something. And I think that that's part of what we're missing here is like, yeah, this is a car to be noticed. So it does have to be a bit of hyperbole, you know? So I don't know. If I had to spend my pile of money on a car, I would rather spend it on this than the Bentayga if those are my two choices. So I did a lot of qualifying in that statement. At least they're thinking, you know. I get it. Everybody was upset about the stupid grill on the Camaro like a week ago too, and I was like, I don't know, it looks fine to me. It looks like a Camaro. Like, whatever. Yeah, it's not worth getting that worked up about. Right. Yeah.
All right. So, speaking of electric SUVs, there's we already saw the production version of the Jaguar I-Pace at Geneva, and there's another one coming out that Audi is starting to tease, which is the e-Tron Quattro. They brought some folks over to Germany last week to take a look at it, at least, some of the testing they're doing with it. Tim Stevens from CNET went over there and they got to see it, being subjected to lightning strikes.
In that room, that's a bunch of Van der Graaf generators, isn't it? That's awesome. They're generating some serious electrical charges. They're 400 kilowatts of electricity over two seconds, or 500 kilovolt. Yeah, 500 kilovolt strike. Yeah, which is like that's
500,000 volts of electricity.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just 0.8 of an amp, though. That's not a lot of
Yeah. Well, that's still a hell of a lot of volts. I mean, even a real lightning strike, is usually not a whole lot of current, but there's a lot of volts, and that'll do some damage.
That's true. And like I just I love that if it's a true Van der Graaf, it's a very long belt and it's generating static electricity, which collects on those domes, and then like it gets too much, and then you get the strike. The dome can only hold so much, and then just Van der Graafs are cool, and they make a big bang when the bolt goes off. It must have been awesome to watch.
Yeah, I mean this was and we'll link to the video that they had posted in this story. We'll link to the story, and it's got the video in there. But the e-Tron Quattro is the first of VW Group's new generation of EVs, and this one's going to have a 95 kilowatt hour battery pack, about a 250 mile range. It's about a roughly Q7 sized SUV, and it's also going to have support for high power DC charging. I don't know if it's going to have support for the full 350 kilowatt charging that the Porsche Mission E will have. But it will definitely be able to support fast charging. And this will be one of the first cars that can take advantage of the new Electrify America charging network that's going to be coming out next year.
They're paying for with their diesel settlement money. Yeah.
Yep, that's the $2 billion that was part of the Dieselgate settlement for infrastructure is being used by Electrify America, which is a subsidiary of Volkswagen Group of America, and they are building out this charging network that they announced this week. The first 500 chargers, which will be in place by July of next year, 100 of those will be located at Walmart stores. So they're partnering with Walmart, and they'll be putting in 100 of those at various Walmart stores around the country, and a total of 500 in total by this time next year. And they're going to add another 500 each year over the next 4 years. So 2,000 charging locations over the next 4 years from that $2 billion.
But those $2 billion too, like it's not basically like Volkswagen mimicking Tesla's sort of brand specific chargers either. Like it's open.
They're going to be standardized chargers. So, SAE combo chargers with DC fast charging support and level 2 charging support. So 240 volt and the initial ones that are going in are going to be 150 kilowatt DC fast chargers, and by comparison, the superchargers are 100 to 120 kilowatts. So these will be more powerful than the superchargers, and they'll be putting in the necessary stuff to upgrade them to 350 kilowatts when the Porsches come out, as well as some of the other upcoming models that are coming out. And in addition to that, VW, Daimler, Ford, and BMW also have a joint venture in Europe called Ionity to build out a DC fast charging network there that's going to have another 400 stations in Europe by 2020.
Yeah. This is, it's funny because Volkswagen had the diesel thing they're still sort of like digging out from, but I feel like what they're doing now, like it's almost like they're asking for redemption. And they're saying, no, really, like this time we mean it. I can't imagine that the e-Tron Quattro is going to have the production hell issues that Tesla has had, and I think they're going to compete directly with Tesla, and they're going to be meticulously engineered and even more meticulously built. So it's going to be really intriguing to watch that battle sort of happen. There's already murmurings about Tesla sort of being more smoke and mirrors, but on the other hand, you get a serious automaker. Not that Tesla's not a serious automaker, but like Volkswagen Group knows what the hell they're doing. They know how to be efficient. They know how to, leverage platforms across multiple brands and still be profitable. They are no joke. And if they're that committed to it, you can bet that 5 years down the road, they're going to be really, really formidable. And I don't know that Tesla's going to be.
And they are. I mean, Volkswagen Group as a whole is very committed to electrification. And you've got the e-Tron Quattro that's coming out this year. There's the e-Tron GT or whatever they end up calling that. Which is more of a sedan, a fastback sedan that's coming out next year. There's several other Audi EVs coming out over the next 3 years. The Volkswagen brand is going to have their whole ID lineup, starting with the ID hatchback next year, the ID Cross, the Bus, and several other models. Porsche's got the Mission E and the Mission E Cross Turismo that they showed in Geneva, and then all the other assorted VW brands, in Europe and other parts of the world will also, have variants of those platforms coming out over the next several years. I think Volkswagen by 2025 is going to have about 50 different battery electric vehicles globally, in Europe, North America, and Asia. Starting with these. And as you said, I think they will be very well engineered. They're certainly doing a lot of testing. We've seen all kinds of spy photos of these things running around in Germany and in Sweden doing cold weather testing. They're getting the factory up and running already. So I think these they'll do just fine.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have the amusement over panel gaps and assembly quality.
No.
And I mean, it's kind of too bad. I'm going to miss it.
I mean, that's never been an issue, for Volkswagen Group anyway. I mean, we've obviously, or certainly I've complained about some of the reliability issues in the Volkswagens that I've owned, but, certainly in terms of, fit and finish and build quality, they've always done an outstanding job.
That's true. Even all the way back to the original Beetle, build quality was one of the markers of Volkswagen. And it's only improved from there. It was interesting to me. I was talking to someone at work. She was looking for a car. She's got a TDI, and she didn't go for the fix. And so she's now saying, like, I want to get another TDI, but I can't. And I don't really think I want the fix. So what am I supposed to do? She's got a Jetta with 120,000 miles on it, and it has been entirely trouble-free. And I was shocked. I was like, what?
Yeah, well, and that's always, the one of the things with Volkswagen is it's always very hit and miss. I've known a number of people that have had, VWs that have run for 200,000 miles without any problems, and others not so much,
including your own.
Yeah. So, what are you going to do? I mean, if she's looking for something, to get comparable fuel economy, is she got a sedan or a wagon?
She is the sedan, the Jetta, and she was looking at like the Toyota CHR, and I was like, I mean, it's a thing, it's entertaining, but if you like the Jetta and the TDI, you're not going to get that kind of fuel economy out of it, and it's not going to feel as responsive.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those sort of build your shopping list things and go drive them, because it's hard for me, and I'm sure you run into this too. It's like, it's hard to really like make a recommendation if somebody has such a sort of a taste for one particular vehicle. And the Germanness of Volkswagen was one of the things that came up, regardless of the Jetta's not.
I would suggest, depending on when she's actually looking at buying, maybe wait till later this summer and take a look at the new Honda Insight. Which is a good thought. Yeah. It's based on the Civic platform. It's going to have the hybrid system that's in the Clarity plug-in, minus the big battery. So it's just a conventional hybrid. Should be priced very competitively, should get great fuel economy, should have decent performance. And since it's on that Civic platform, it'll have great driving dynamics as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, my sort of
it looks really good,
right? And it's, yes, that's true with the Honda. The styling is hit or miss with them. It's, some people like what was the Type R and the I saw a Clarity around here. I was like, what the hell is that?
It that one's definitely on the miss side as far as the design goes, but
it looked like it looked like somebody bought an Accord and then they put a bunch of stuff on it to make it look like the old,
kind of like a Mansory Accord.
Not quite. No, it was like an Accord Electra 225. Just kind of like the old car stuff. Like I was looking for the white walls. It has like spats on the rear wheels and stuff. And I know it's for aerodynamics and stuff. It's just it's weird.
It is odd looking.
I don't mind the front half of it. It's fine. But yeah, I my lamest suggestion was just like, well, if you like the Jetta, just wait for the 2019 Jetta. It should be out this summer. You should be able to buy it.
Yeah, that's another good one too. And it's probably not going to be quite as fuel efficient as the TDI, but it should be pretty close.
I don't know. We'll cross that bridge. I'll let you know what happens.
All right.
Where were we? We
were talking about the e-Tron and Electrify America. Buick. Another one coming out at the Beijing show. The Buick Inspire EV.
First of all, whoever came up with that weird kind of portmanteau name there, and stop it. You could have called it the Buick Inspire. That would have been fine. It's a word.
Well, it seems like Buick has decided that they're going to go with this pattern with their naming convention, starting with EN. Because you get the Encore, the Enclave. What else? I guess that's it for now. Obviously, the Inspire, assuming they stick with that name.
It's kind of like, at least it's EN and not EM, because this whole thing is like Buick Ematic.
The Envision is another one.
Yeah.
So all other utilities, are using that pattern. So Enclave, Encore, Envision, and now the Inspire.
It's beyond the name too. Like it looks like a nice vaporware wish list to me. And we've seen renderings. We'll see the car.
Well, the car will be shown in Beijing this week.
Yeah.
And from what we can tell, it sounds like it's based on a lot of the hardware from the Bolt. which is a good thing. Although with two motors rather than just one, so basically taking the Bolt powertrain, and doubling it up, putting a motor at each axle for 410 kilowatts, 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. Probably a little bit bigger version of the battery because they're claiming 370 miles of range on a charge. So, this looks like it's closer, probably going to be closer in size to maybe a little bit smaller than the Enclave. Which is the big one, the Theta. No,
right.
Lambda.
No, the
Lambda.
Are you thinking of the Envision, which is another terrible name? Right? Isn't the Envision no? The Enclave is the Lambda, or I guess
the Enclave is the Lambda. So it looks like, there is no Envision right now.
What? No.
There's Enclave on. Oh, sorry, Envision. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Sorry. Never mind. Yeah.
They've clearly screwed up their names too.
Yeah. So it looks like it's about the size of the Envision.
Okay. Which the Envision is weird because it's like they're not selling that many of them. So I'll always, at least around here in New England, I'll see one and I'll be like, what is that? It causes the double take because it's a crossover and you go, oh, it's one of those cars that looks like the anonymized insurance company marketing materials cars where they you can see things from the other cars. They like actual cars that they Photoshop together. That's what the Envision looks like to me. It's like, oh, it's got all these different little styling ideas, but I don't know what it is. Oh yeah, it's the Buick. All right. Forgot about that. Anyway, sorry, just
yeah. So I mean, right now we have no idea, if a production version of this one will come to the U.S. market or not. I'm guessing it probably will. Just because Americans love utilities, and GM wants to get more. They've promised more EVs here, and so I would be shocked if we don't get a production version of the Inspire here in the next probably the next 18 to 24 months. Especially given what else is coming from Ford and from other brands. Buick is supposed to be a more premium brand, and that's the direction that all the premium brands are going. So I'm sure that we will see a production version of this one here in the U.S.
So I guess this is a modern concern too. Like, does it become easier for them to take a car that's really intended for the Chinese market and just bring it over here? So, because Buick is this it's GM's sort of like shrug and why not kind of thing. Like they don't make money off Buick here, but they do in China. So yeah, why not? We'll try it in America. We'll try this model. It kind of doesn't really cost them anything to sell a couple 100,000 Buicks every year in the U.S.
Yeah, especially when you're selling 1.2, 1.3 million of them in China.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, sure. Even if we lose money in the U.S., whatever. But it doesn't have a conventional powertrain in it, so it doesn't have to be federalized, right? Like it should. Well,
I mean, you still have to meet U.S. crash requirements and all the other regulations, but
right. But that seems like something that's baked in, right? Like
in terms of emission certification, yeah. I mean, there's nothing to there's no problem there. I mean, that's easy. And it'll certainly help their CAFE numbers. So, GM promised 20 new zero emission vehicles by 2023, and a lot of those are probably going to be China only vehicles. But this looks like a vehicle that would do really well in the U.S. market.
The rendering or photo or whatever, it's heavily
it's a render.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah,
it's handsome. It won't look quite that good when it's a production car, but yeah, I mean, I could see them trying it here. And if crossovers are the way everybody's going to go, at least have some interesting ones, and it seems interesting. So,
yeah, again, no, I think it'll do fine.
Yeah, why not?
What do you got to lose?
Yeah, at this point, they don't have anything to lose, so. Hopefully it works out. Honestly, I'd like to see more interesting stuff because it gets kind of dull when everything is just a shade of gray and a crossover. So
Well, I mean, keep in mind that, if and when this does come to the U.S. market, it will probably be available in 5 different shades of gray, as well as white and black, and maybe one shade of red.
Yeah, at least it's not like gold. Every Buick from the 90s was gold, metallic gold. And it's just that is a terrible color. All right. Let's jump again to Toyota. Because what I find interesting is that they want to roll out vehicle to vehicle, right? Or is it V to I? Or
both actually, V to X.
So they want to roll out V to X, and they've rolled it out elsewhere, which I guess I wasn't aware that they've sort of successfully tested this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's been on the market in Japan since late 2015. They've sold about 100,000 cars in Japan with vehicle-to-vehicle communications. And this is, so what Toyota announced this week is that they're going to start doing a broad rollout of V2X communications technology starting in 2021 in the U.S. market. And so this is. Right now, there's 2 competing technologies. Up until fairly recently, all of the efforts around vehicle-to-vehicle and vehicle-to-infrastructure communications were using what's known as DSRC, or dedicated short-range communications. And it's basically a variation of Wi-Fi technology that's been optimized for this kind of application, and it sends short messages 10 times a second. About what's going on. So, when, if you're driving along and your ABS activates because you hit a patch of ice, it'll broadcast out a message to other vehicles in the area that, hey, slippery road detected. Or if for some reason the driver, hits the brake pedal hard, to avoid some obstacle, it'll broadcast out a basic safety message saying, emergency braking detected, different things like that. And, the other vehicles that are following it down the road will receive, assuming they're equipped with this technology, they'll receive those messages and they can provide an alert to the driver. And if, automakers can also integrate it into their active safety systems so that, if you're going down the road and the car ahead of you, slams on the brakes, it can automatically, start slowing you down before the driver can even respond to an alert. And one of the ways that Toyota is using this in Japan, excuse me, is they're doing what they call cooperative adaptive cruise control. So when you've got a couple of Toyota or Lexus cars with this technology in there, and you're using adaptive cruise control normally uses a radar sensor to detect the distance, and speed of the vehicle in front of you, and it automatically maintains that safe following distance. Well, with the DSRC added into that, the V2V part added into that, you can actually start to follow more closely, because what happens is the leading car will send a message back to cars that are following it, saying, hey, I'm about to slow down. So you can, they can coordinate what's happening and slow down together. So you can follow at a closer distance, while still maintaining a safety margin. And that's also what they're starting to do, like they're doing with truck platooning, like companies like Peloton Technologies.
They're calling that platooning, right? Like,
yeah.
So it's basically, you get a roving pack of cars.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that sounds all great. Like, obviously they've got some of the safety stuff, safety concerns. Like, who's to say you can't fake one of these signals and send it to a car and cause it to do something? Not that anybody would necessarily want to do that, but the thought.
But if it can be done, some bad guys will do it. I mean, that's just the nature of the world we live in. But part of developing the standards for this stuff is they also built in authentication. The standard includes authentication protocols, and the messages are all encrypted. So there's, it uses a certificate-based system, and they've been testing this stuff for years. Here in Ann Arbor, for several years they ran the Safety Pilot Model Deployment Program, which was partially funded by the Department of Transportation and also the state of Michigan. And my wife's car was equipped with DSRC radios. And she was driving that around for several years. And they were collecting data from all these cars, about how the systems were working. And then, the NHTSA, had actually, they had proposed a mandate to require this to be included in all new cars from about 2020. And the final notice of proposed rulemaking was published in December of 2016, right after the election. And unfortunately, under the current administration, they have decided that they're not going to do any new regulations going forward. And so that's just been stalled.
The frivolous, you've got to drop 2 to add 1, which seems kind of random.
Right.
So that's going to hamstring this process. And the two differences too, like, Toyota system is Wi-Fi and the Ford system is cellular, because everybody's trying to roll out their own kind of DSRC stuff.
Right. Well, GM has also rolled out the DSRC based system, the Wi-Fi based system. It's available on the CTS. They launched it on the CTS last year.
Right, that's right. I remember that.
Yeah, and GM and Toyota have been two of the biggest proponents of this technology globally. And in fact, last year, Volkswagen also announced, in Europe at least, that they're going to start rolling this stuff out, across their model lineup in 2019 in Europe. They haven't made any announcements yet about what they're going to do in North America. But they are planning to deploy DSRC in Europe, and so the other competing technology that you just mentioned, is what's known as CV to X, which is a technology that Qualcomm has been promoting. It's basically using LTE to do direct peer-to-peer communications between vehicles, but that's still very early on in development. Qualcomm's announced a chipset to support CV to X, and Ford has started doing some testing with it, and they've said that that's what they want to use. They don't want to use DSRC. But the thing is, for any of this to work really well, you need to have a critical mass of vehicles, on the road, equipped with this technology, so they're sending messages back and forth. And the sooner you start getting cars out there, the sooner you'll get more vehicles that are using it. And this is why, Toyota made this announcement, even though they have the technology in Japan, but they're going to wait a couple of years before they start rolling it out here. But they announced it now because they want the rest of the industry to come along. So they want everybody to do it.
Well, it's going to be like a beta versus VHS kind of thing. There's multiple ways to do it, and they'll all work. They will all have sort of their highs and lows. But it's really going to take everybody signing up for one, picking one. And once that winner is selected, then I think it'll catch fire a little bit. Maybe that was a poor choice of words.
Hopefully not. But
it will see wider adoption once it's more of a standard, even if it's just sort of like a de facto standard. And you've got Toyota. Toyota sells a lot of cars. Volkswagen sells a lot of cars. GM sells a lot of cars. If they're all aligned on a single standard, like that bodes well for that one winning out in the end.
And other manufacturers have demonstrated this stuff. They've participated in the pilot programs. Honda at the ITS World Congress here in Detroit a couple of years ago, they showed off a bunch of things that they were doing with DSRC, including one that was virtual towing, which was a pretty cool demonstration. In that case, they were using DSRC in the car, and if a driver became ill or incapacitated for some reason, they could press an SOS button in the car, and another car equipped with DSRC could come along, get in front of the car with the incapacitated driver, and using the V2V messages, basically take control of the car with the ill driver and do virtual towing to get them to a hospital or to a medical facility, and then once they get there, then just press the button and release it. So the other car would just follow where you're going, without having to wait for an ambulance or something like that. So, I mean, and, you can, because it's based on Wi-Fi, you can easily put it, use the Wi-Fi radios in cell phones, in our existing cell phones, just retune them to the 5.9 gigahertz frequency that, the TSRC is using, to do vehicle to pedestrian communications, so, a pedestrian with carrying a phone could be broadcasting their position, to vehicles coming down the road. So you would know, if somebody was about to step out into the street. You can do vehicle to motorcycle, vehicle to bicycle, that sort of thing, as well as vehicle to infrastructure.
Yeah. So there's a lot of upside to having this stuff. There's certainly privacy concerns. For me, like I'm the kind of person who doesn't have location on my cell phone. So I guess I'd get mowed over.
Yeah.
If I stepped out in front of traffic.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, anytime you add any kind of communications system, privacy, you're going to lose some degree of privacy, for that extra safety benefit.
Yeah. I mean, you're on public roads.
That's a legitimate concern, and there's also, I mean, even though they've gone to great pains to try to secure the system, there's also the risk that, you've got any kind of complex system, there's a risk that, somebody's going to find a vulnerability and exploit it.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to happen. Look, people are always going to do that kind of stuff. I'm not all that concerned about it. I'm just thinking, like, those of us who don't have our phones broadcasting location, like, is there going to be another thing where we're going to be pinging, V2I or V2X networks just so that they know that we're there, or are we just going to take our lives in our own hands, as we do now, and just like not have it? Like, is it? It's not really a big question. It's just a little point of curiosity, I guess. At this point, it'll be figured out.
Yeah, we'll sort it out. We'll find a way.
Yeah. And you know what? That's what we've done. I think we've sorted out a podcast. We didn't have any questions or anything, did we?
There were a couple of emails that came in.
I didn't see. All right.
Let's see. On the most recent podcast about hatches, I mentioned it's probably best to lease a Golf due to reliability reasons, and that you'd lightly discussed earlier. Let's see. I'm in the market for a new car, and I'm leaning heavily towards a Golf R. And no, this message did not come from Casey. I typically buy a car and keep it 8 to 10 years and drive about 13,000 miles a year. My last two cars have been Hondas, and I'd never owned a VW. One of the things I like about the 2018 Golf is the 6-year, 72,000 mile warranty. Given this increased warranty, would you still recommend leasing a VW? I had not recalled that they had bumped up the warranty like that. And if that is in fact their bumper to bumper warranty, then, it's probably not a bad deal. I mean, you probably could, safely go ahead and buy the Golf R if that was the case. And certainly if you do start having problems around the 5-year mark, you still got time to ditch it, and get something else before the warranty runs out and you have to start paying through the nose. The other option, of course, is if you're interested in something like the Golf R, Civic Type R. It's a different look, but hey, it drives great.
It does. They're different flavors though. Yeah. Like the Golf is. And I don't know, like, having just stepped out of the GTI too, I don't know that I'd spring for a Golf R with the GTI around, just because the GTI is good enough. But I mean, there is a definite difference. Like, you can tell that the Golf R is quicker and has all-wheel drive and stuff. So if that's really what you want, don't shortchange yourself, but also, like, try other stuff. There are other options worth taking a look at. Yeah. Like a Subaru STI, the Civic Type R. Depending on where you live and what your road conditions are like, you might want to take a look at the Focus RS before it goes away as well. I mean, they're not going to be around much longer. They're almost, they're almost out of. I think they've.
I think they already stopped building them in Europe. And they may still be building some here for a few more months. And there's certainly some around at dealers, so it might be worth taking a look at one of those as well.
I mean, honestly, I think that you're going to be okay. You'll have to navigate that Volkswagen thing that we talked about earlier. Like, it'll either be good or not.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of a middle ground, but you're going to keep it for 8 years. You're going to do 13,000 miles. I mean, it's a little over 100,000 miles. My calculator says it's 104,000 miles over the course of your ownership. I think you'll be all right. You've got a pretty long warranty. You're only going to be a couple of years outside of warranty. You're going to put that 60,000 miles on it pretty quickly. You're going to put it on before the time period is up. But from 60 to 104, like that's not a huge show. Like I bought my Volvos with I bought one of them with 85,000 miles on it, and it had its issues, but generally it was okay. Ish.
Yeah, and like I've said before, somewhere around 55, 60,000 miles is, if things are going to start to go wrong on a Volkswagen, that's usually where it starts to happen. And it's often very expensive things to fix, but if you've still got another, 15,000 miles of warranty left on it at that point, then, you've got some margin for error there. Yeah.
Just don't get upside down on it.
Yeah.
Too short.
That's right.
Don't overspend.
Yeah.
The Golf R is delightful. I like it a lot. So
I haven't driven the current generation Golf R, so I can't comment on that. But I mean, all my experiences in driving Volkswagens, have been great. The driving dynamics are fantastic. They've always been really good. It's just the ownership experience that has been troubling for me. But like I said, if with a better warranty,
I don't know how
maybe that's not going to be an issue this time.
I don't know how helpful that advice was, but. That's true. We always we're
how helpful is any of our?
We always hedge our bets. Really? We're always like, well, yeah. I mean, like if I were going to do it, I would do this thing definitely. But you may want to waffle around.
Yeah. And then we did have one other email from Jeremy referring to my rant on the last episode about autonomous driving and semi-autonomous or semi-automated features. And it's just a reminder that the systems that are on the market today are not fully automated. You do have to stay in control. And what Jeremy mentioned here in the email is, you didn't think I took it far enough. Things like automatic emergency braking and blind spot detection are things that a lot of people don't fully understand their limitations. And he sees plenty of cars on Michigan roads with the amber lights in the side mirrors, even though there's nothing next to that vehicle. So that's the blind spot monitors that he's referring to, which in most cases there's usually an indicator built into the side mirrors to tell you when there's a vehicle that's been detected in the blind spot. And that's if you're in a position where you can actually see that, if you're in another vehicle and you can see that, that light on in the mirror, and there's no other vehicle next to that means you're probably the one that's in the blind spot and being detected. So the range where those blind spot monitors, will pick it up. And the way those work is there's a short range radar sensor on either side in each of the rear corners of the vehicle that are looking out and back, sort of in a, looking to the corners out and back on either side of the car. So if you're close enough that you can actually see those little indicators on the mirrors, it's probably your vehicle that the sensors are picking up. Yeah. So I mean, they've got a range of probably about 30 to 40 feet. Let's see. Probably about 50 to 60 feet that they'll pick up. So, if you're in that zone, that's probably why you're seeing those on. But, the rest of the email goes on, to talk about, what happens, when the systems don't work properly and people don't know what to do. These types of technologies are teaching people that they don't need to drive. Their vehicles will tell them what to do or do it for them. And then you're getting too close, like you're getting too close to the lane line, your seat will vibrate, car will move you back to where it should be. But if the sun hits a sensor and blinds it, now it doesn't know what to do, and the truck in front of you it might be doing something, and your car may not automatically slow down. Yep. He refers to his mother's 20-year-old truck that has the ABS light on. I had to tell her that that light on her ABS, with that light on, her ABS isn't working. So that's those warning lamps are an indicator that something has actually failed.
Yeah, so that makes me think that maybe he lives in a state that doesn't have inspection, because there's no way. Yeah,
well, he refers to Michigan, so I think he actually lives here in Michigan.
Did you guys have a yearly inspection?
No. Okay,
so yeah, like there's no way our cars here in Massachusetts will get a sticker, an inspection sticker, with an ABS light or a check engine light on. Even if you have like an OBD2 scanner and you clear the check engine light, if you don't drive it for the sort of cycles to get any pending stuff out, you can't just reset it and take it there.
Right, and if there's still a fault there, as soon as you start driving again, the light will come back on.
Yeah. So there are issues that inspections are good for catching. But no, he's right.
But what if the light comes on, 2 weeks after you've had your inspection, you've got another year before you get inspected again. You've got to be aware that, when that light comes on, that warning light comes on, that means the system's not working.
Right. Yeah. Most people don't know that. And like the airbag light's the same thing.
Yeah. And, so, if you hit the brakes and the road is slippery, you've got to be prepared to, modulate the brakes or pump the brakes, the way we used to do. And you can't rely on the ABS because it's not going to be there, or stability control won't be working, or your traction control might not be working. So, this is all part of what we were talking about last week, with, educating people about what the systems are capable of doing, but also what they can't do. And, it needs to go beyond that, to also educating them, what are these lights on the dashboard mean when they come on? What happens, what people need to understand, what's happening when these systems are deactivated for any reason, whether it's just, slush on the radar sensor or, some other sensor failing.
Yeah. You mean you don't read the manual?
What's a manual?
You're right. Well, the Jeep didn't even come with a manual. Oh no, I guess it did. It came with a book. It did. It didn't come with like repair manual. There was something that it like the full owner's manual. So it just had like tiny books, like the quick start guide or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it again, it goes back to like, I want drivers to be trained more like pilots. I want controls to be more like airplane controls where they're standardized. So it's not, there's less styling involved, and it's just, nope, these controls are always this way and they're always in these locations. I think that would help. The amount of complexity that's in cars with these active safety systems that just start beeping at you and tugging at the wheel and hitting the brakes. If you don't know that that's going to happen, it can freak you out.
Or worse yet, if you do know what's supposed to happen and it doesn't happen,
right?
Which is kind of the point of Jeremy's email here. Understanding that what do you do when the systems are not working?
Yeah, and sometimes it's really subtle, like the Armada that I've got this week. We had some April snow, which was lovely, and it was thick and heavy and wet, and so it collected on the radar sensor. So the dynamic cruise control stopped working. It didn't really beep all that loudly at me or anything. I don't even remember if it actually beeped at me. I noticed at one point I was in traffic and it started accelerating because I had the speed set higher than what the traffic was doing. And it's just like it started accelerating to its set speed or something. Like it was acting really funny, and it like I didn't know why. I figured it probably had some crap on the sensor. So I noticed this and I kicked it back into manual control and it was fine. But if I hadn't been paying attention, I would have just hit the car in front of me.
Well, and that's another place where there's inconsistent behavior, because in the Armada, the adaptive part of the cruise control stopped working, but the basic cruise control continued to work.
That must be what it was. Yeah, it was. I don't know.
It was accelerating because it was going up to whatever your set speed was and ignoring the distance to the vehicle ahead of you. In other cars I've driven, like, in Mercedes S-Class I drove last fall, in the Hyundai Sonata, when that radar sensor became obstructed for whatever reason, the cruise control didn't work at all. You didn't have standard cruise control or adaptive cruise control.
Well, and that happened later in the drive. That it did. So I don't know if it was confused and or what. Like, I don't know if it was two related incidents but it did. It just exhibited weird behavior, and so I was like, okay, not a big deal if you're paying attention, but if you're not paying attention, it's a much bigger deal.
Yeah, and you do have to pay attention to all these systems, and I think as part of the delivery process and just part of general driver training, we need to do a better job of educating people about how these systems function. And unfortunately, the reality is that most of the people doing the training don't really understand the technology either. There's actually not that many people that really do understand how this stuff is supposed to work.
Oh yeah, and like the amount of just straight up bullshit,
yeah,
and like wrong-headed understanding of these things that you hear, it's almost like a comedy routine where like somebody's trying to just mash up a bunch of statements and put them together for a laugh, but it's not funny because a lot of people just don't get it and they don't understand.
They know they have just enough knowledge to be dangerous.
Yeah, so.
And on that note,
hey,
now that we've told you just enough stuff to put you in danger.
Yeah, we're gonna be real cheery. So enjoy the rest of your week. But I think we've exhausted our supply of good cheer topics at this point. So we're just gonna talk in circles about being a downer, about how we're all gonna die and our cars are gonna kill us.
Well, we're all going to die eventually anyway, so
we should just
might as well enjoy the ride.
Exactly. Hey, look, every day you wake up, you have been cheated once again by death because you're still here.
Or you have cheated death or something like that.
Either or. I mean, let's play the victim card. Death did not, do his job. But anyway, I'm going to go.
All right. See you next time, everybody.
Yeah, hit us up at we are Wheelbearings Cast on Twitter with no vowels except for that last one. Wheelbearing Media on Facebook. You can leave us a review where you leave reviews. Get us in your favorite podcatcher, and we're around. So talk to us. We'll see you next week.
All right, bye.
Owning a boat comes with a number of perks, like being able to fling your favorite fishing rod around. And here's another perk. Geico's boat insurance covers your boat and your belongings. And with specialist support from agents that are as passionate about boating as you are, there's so much value that you'll want to high-five someone. But not while you're holding your fishing rod. That's a prized possession. So hold on tight with both hands and keep it covered through boat insurance. Get more with Geico.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years, and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.